Hello and welcome to another video. Today I'm going to be looking at a very different aspect to my previous videos. Today I'm going to be looking at another form of revision. So the school I'm working with at the moment, we're really trying to push independent study, particularly at Key Stage 3, and we're using flashcards to do this. So I just wanted to put together a short video on other maths revision strategies, and in particular skill flashcards. Um, so, you've all come across flashcards before. This is a basic blank flashcard, and I'm just going to be talking about how you can fill those out to make them really useful for maths skill revision. It's based around the retrieval cycle and reviewing or summarizing lessons that have previously been covered. If you find this video useful, please check out some of my others. I tend to do exam paper walkthroughs, which are the best final preparation videos for your exams. We've all seen a blank flashcard before. I'm going to take it as a front and a back. I'm going to talk to you about the basic principles of filling them in, and then I'm going to give you some strategies for the best ways of filling them in afterwards. So the front of the flashcard, I always think it's really important to include on the front the actual skill title. So whatever you're doing, the specific skill, I tend to view these as every lesson that's delivered in class will normally have a skill. This is a way of kind of summarizing what's been taught in that lesson into a kind of a bite-sized way of reviewing it. So it's important to have the skill title, and I also think it's important, not crucial, but I do think it's useful to have the date that you studied it. So the date that this was actually delivered to you as a skill in itself, as a lesson. And then on the front, I think it's really useful if you've got the space, include a small a small box or a small section in the bottom right-hand corner, and I'll talk about what goes in there later on in the video, but for now we need to leave that blank. And then on the front, what I tend to think is really important is to have a summary of that skill. So the summary can form a number of different elements. It can be key points, so key pieces of information that have been covered in that, any formulas that are going to be used, a description of what the skill actually does, and then finally any keywords and meanings of those words. Those can all go on the front, and it's quite important not to put any of them into that box. But that's really what you put on the front of a skill flashcard. And on the back, what we do is I split that in half. And on the left-hand side, I always think a worked example with annotation. So that's a worked example showing the steps. It clearly modeled any description of bits that you're doing. So if you've times by 3, you might want to show that and also explain why you've done that. So a nice clear worked example with annotation. And then on the other side, I think it's important to have some questions to practice. Now the questions to practice need to kind of range in difficulty. So you need to start easy, start with a very straightforward one. Typically speaking, slightly easier than the worked example. And then build it up to in your own pace to a medium question, which would be probably as hard, if not slightly harder than the worked example. And then going up to the final one, which is quite a difficult one. So it doesn't need to be more than 5. Five is a good number. It gets you to practice it, gets you to bring it back from the long term into the short term memory. And then the next bit is where we go back to the front of the card. So that red box at the bottom corner is where I would put the answers for those 5 questions. So don't need anything other than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 along with the answers. And that's the basic layout of your skill flashcard. So again, on the front you've got the skill title along with the summary points and a small space for answers. And then on the back of the card, you've got a nice clear worked example with annotations and a range of questions, starting easy and building up more difficult. And that's your basic layout of any skill-based flashcard. Right, I'm now going to talk you through ways that you can fill them in. So there's always kind of three levels to most things, and I'm going to go through kind of the perfect way to a good way to a kind of a cheaty way, and hopefully that means that you can fill one in regardless of your kind of your starting point. So the absolute perfect way to fill these sheets in, fill these flashcards in, is from the notes that you've taken during the lesson. So your from your book, you should be able to, you should have taken good enough notes to actually fill in a summary for each of the lessons. Um, uh, so that would be the best way of doing it. Absolutely. If you're not in a position though where you've, let's say, not taken the best notes and you want some kind of pointers in how you could do this, um, the kind of the second best way would be to go to a copy of the presentation that your teacher has used for the lesson. Now, most teachers are happy to share these with students if they don't buy, if they haven't already. So I share all my lessons with students via in their classrooms, so in their Google Classroom, sorry. After I've finished delivering a unit, I will usually put it, well, I will always put it into my Google Classroom, so students can have access to those lessons. Um, and if you've not taken the best notes, then obviously loading the lesson up and looking through to make the summary perfectly uh, is a perfect way of getting around the fact that you may not have taken the best notes during the lesson. So I'll kind of show you what I mean by that. Okay, so I've got a lesson loaded up here. This is one that I've recently done with my year 10s on probability of single events. So if you've not got particularly great notes, you can look through and take out the key points. So obviously here's a formula that would be needed to be added. We could have looked at and picked out some of the key language um, and bits here, the fact that probabilities can be written as fractions, decimals or percentages. Um, so we've got nice bits of information that can be added and we can make a nice summary from this. So that would be kind of the second level, the second best way of doing it. Absolutely. Um, the third and final way, which if you're producing a lot of them, might be useful, although you have to be slightly cautious in doing this. But it's quite useful because we're now in a very fortunate stage where AI is coming into a lot of resources. So you can, for anything that we've got, uh, you do have the option of Copilot is the one that I've been using quite a lot recently. So you can create a summary from a document to summarize the main points on this page, and we get this information can be used as part of your kind of I don't want to summarize the main points from this page. I want to, yeah, that's the main. I was curious there. So I was trying to work out for it to summarize the main points from this particular slide, but it's done it from this particular web page. So there's kind of your key bits. And I'm not over the moon about this. I think you need to be a bit cautious in assuming that everything that's been pulled through is relevant. But that is a way that you can kind of quickly summarize a lesson. Right. And again, so the next point I'm going to make is about the problem pairs. So in terms of, I've gone the wrong way there. Let's bring that back up. So in terms of in terms of the worked example with annotations and the questions. So again, the best way to do this would be from your book. So look at the worked example from your book. And the very best way of actually doing this would be come up with a different question and use the steps that we used in the worked example. So don't use the exact same question. Create a very similar one, but use that method to come up with a nice clear worked example. And by annotations, I mean explain it. So imagine that you were trying to explain to future you how you would approach that word example. So you include notes that would be helpful there. So that again, that would be the best way of doing it. The middle way of doing it would be to just simply copy the word example that you did in your book. And then obviously, if you haven't got particularly great notes in your book, you do have the option of kind of bringing the lesson back up. So from the lesson, you can pick the worked example from a worked example from the lesson. So here I've got 3 to pick from. And these aren't great ones, to be honest. But that's where you can get your worked example from. And again, include notes and annotations to make it as useful to you as you can. And then the questions. So I've said 5 questions ranging from easy to hard. And again, your book is the perfect place to get these from if you've taken good notes. But again, if you haven't taken the best notes, the lesson itself will be able to give you that. So I haven't pre-prepared or looked at this in much detail, but if I look at the lesson, I'm assuming that I've got, here we go. So I'm going to pick 5 questions. I've got 4 here, and then to be fair, I've got quite a few here as well. So I could actually build all 5 questions from this review slide. And the answers, so the answers back on the front, they should be taken from your book again. You should, for every lesson that you do, it is important that you do nice clear questions and you mark them and correct them. So if you haven't marked and corrected them, you're not going to have all the answers. Again, the PowerPoints will have the answers in for you. So these ones have got all the answers for the apply to demonstrate and for the review questions. So you can get the answers from there if needs be. And again, the main principle, the idea behind that is it's that idea of spaced retrieval. So it's summarizing a lesson, which is hugely beneficial. There's a lot of debate over how useful flashcards are for maths. And I'm not going to get into that debate here. I am going to say 100% summarizing a lesson that you've previously studied is hugely beneficial in terms of retrieval and moving things into your long-term memory. So that's it. That's a quickish summary of how you can produce skill flashcards. Obviously, if you're not looking at skills, you're looking at just bits of information that you need to know. On the front, you kind of ask a question. On the back, you have an answer. Things like definitions work very well for that. Things like recall of formulas, recall of key facts like square numbers. Those can all be done very easily on a flashcard, front and back. We're talking about the skill flashcards here. So I hope you found that useful. Please do try the flashcards. They are a fantastic way of summarizing and revisiting topics. I can't stress that enough. Thank you for your time in listening. I hope you found that useful. And if you have, please do subscribe if you like.